welcome to Gulfstream Park. It is Tuesday, December 16th, 2014. Christina Bosanakis, Ron Nicoletti, and Ron, another lovely day. It's like I'm like a broken record, just continual. It's been great.
These days have been fantastic because it's cool in the morning, and that's good for us. It's good for the horses. It's like in the mid-50s, maybe low 60s, and then it gets beautiful in the afternoon. So we got a fast main track, firm turf course, and we got the Rainbow Six. We have over $100,000 in the pool now, just a little over, but still over $100,000. You see it on your screen now, $100,245. That starts in race number 5. It's a 6-race sequence. The last races on the card, 6 races on the card, only a 20-cent wager.
Before we get into today's card, we'll take a quick look back. And a lot of stakes action run over the weekend. On Saturday, we had 4 stakes, and we had the first graded stake of the season as well, the Sugar Swirl. But let's take a look at the Harlan's Holiday. I'm really pumped, very stoked about this race because a couple of horses coming out of here. You have the tried and true proven battler, and that's Valid, who you see on the outside, number 7. And he looked stupendous. He ran fantastic. But the horse to his inside is named Liam's Map from the Todd Fletcher barn, and it's a horse I think we're gonna hear a lot more from.
Yeah, it sounds like he might be in the Don Handicap a little later on in February, and that was a great performance because he was dueling early with another horse, Chavo, who ended up finishing last in the race. Then Valid comes up and runs next to him, and you think Valid's gonna go by him, and he fights back and he wins it. So he fought off a 2-pronged attack in that race. The early speed, and then a big move by Valid, who we really were impressed with the way that horse ran, but nobody was beating Liam's Map that afternoon, and maybe we'll see him in the Don Handicap in just a couple of weeks down the road.
And he is a 3-year-old turning 4, yeah, and a lightly raced colt, and it's very exciting. He's of the ilk of Cross Traffic, another nice horse from the Todd Fletcher barn, who ended up becoming a Grade 1 winner, so there might be another one in the offing for another son of Unbridled Song. And so we'll get into today's card, Ron, and we do have, I was looking over our selections today, and it's one of those days, I feel like every day is one of those days, right, where we just go off in so many different directions, right, but that's just the competitive nature of these cards. And we're going to look at the first race on the card, which is a 20,000 claiming event. It is 6 furlongs on the main track. We do have a jockey change, number 2, Edgard Zayas, and my top selection, I went with number 7, Keyed for Success. I think coming back into this for Bill White off of a very useful effort, showed speed, just got a little bit tired late. I think his numbers stack up really well with the rest of these.
I like the fact that there was 10 horses in a race, and we gave you 6 different
horses.
That's
right.
I went with the number 9, One-Eyed Candy Ride. This one's making its local debut, the first start since he drew away to crush a field of $15,000 maidens at Delaware. Won that race by 7.5 lengths, but I really like the work that trainer Anthony Pecoraro does. He's 32% with the 61 to 180 day off. He's good with his freshman runners, and he's got an impressive apprentice in Tyler Gaffleone in there. So I went with the number 9, One-Eyed Candy Ride. Jack Fallon and the 10 horse finished in a dead heat, 5 lengths in front of everybody else last night, so I'm using those 2 back, 2nd and 3rd, but I really like the number 9, One-Eyed Candy Ride.
Yeah, I used another horse, Renombre, underneath, and I think he's coming into this off of a win, 6 furlongs, and that was at Gulfstream Park West. And Ron, so far, how have you seen the form transferring over from Gulfstream Park West over to Gulfstream? Have you seen any patterns yet?
Well, just in the beginning, in the horses that don't run in the stakes races and everything like that, if they run well there, they've run well here. There's been like no jump out like usually when we used to have Calder horses to ship in long ago. It's a different kind of horse. These horses were stabled here, running here together. So at that level, they fit with this level of competition. I hit a couple of long shots by. I just thought that people might ignore the form over there, and it's held up. But with that said, it's not in the allowance level, it's in the claiming level.
Yeah, it sure is. And on to the second race on today's card, and we do have a 12-5 maiden claiming event. It is a mile on the main track, and there's a scratch number 5, See the Judge. And this race kicks off the early pick 4. My top selection, I went with number 10, and at least we both used this horse from the Marcus Vitale barn, and it's Freight's Bay, and it's a 3-year-old colt by Flower Alley. First time on the dirt, and Ron, the Flower Alleys, they can run on the dirt.
Yeah, I mean, it's a logical horse to be on here. You're plummeting to the $12,500 level. Finished 5th. That was a pair of route races on the grass. Against tougher competition at Laurel, Belmont. We've talked about Marcus Vitale throughout the weekend because he had a lot of horses going from turf to dirt, and if you watch the stats, he's gone from 26% to 27, back to 26, so he's around there. But I went with the number 1 personal start, dropping to the $12,500 level. stretching out to a 1-turn mile after ending his fall campaign with a 4th-place finish, beating 2 lengths. That was against $25,000 maidens. It was up at Parks. The trainer is Kelly Breen. Paco Lopez going to handle the inside post today. You have it on the ticket. We just have our exacta flip-flop. And I closed it out with the number 6, Let It Be Famous, stretching out to a mile. Broke from post 10 last time out.
Looking ahead to the 3rd race on today's card, and this is a 6250 claiming test. It is 6 furlongs on the main track. We do have a scratch, number 8, My Omega Run. There's a jockey change. Number 4 is going to be Luis Saez. And my top selection, I went with Passkey, and it seems like for the first time today we're in agreement.
Yeah, we went with Passkey, and I have a Happy Harvey in second, but we had a video we want to show here, right?
And I had actually the 2 horses that I had on top, Passkey and number 3, Chevron Light. They came out of the same race last time. That was on November 30th at Gulfstream Park West. So we're going to be seeing them here. Now, Ron, look at where Chevron Light is coming from. I just want to make that point. Right. It was just highlighted back there. He closed like a freight train. Yeah, Passkey had the jump on him, and I think that's going to be useful that he has that. He could get that early position.
Yeah, so Passkey, logical choice to be on top of there, and a nice performance in Chevron Light. I could see why you put him on the ticket. He closed very well. Here he comes flying late in the race. But I did go in second with Happy Harvey today. But Passkey, we're in agreement of. He's from Cecil Paul Bond, Miguel Vasquez in the saddle. And then I went with the number 9, Happy Harvey, as I mentioned, giving some time off after responding to a drop in competition. 2nd place finish, going 5.5 furlongs. Here it is, Gulfstream Park West. It was on October 27th. Trainer Steve Dwoskin has Leandro Concalves atop this son of Henny Hughes. I just think this horse fits in here. And I threw in the number 4, Little Baker, coming in there. That's the horse that has the jockey change. Carlo Baccareza is going to have Luis Saez in the saddle today.
I think a pretty competitive race for the 3rd today. On to the 4th race on the card, and it is a maiden special weight event. It is for 2-year-olds and going 6 furlongs on the main track. Ron, you know I love these when I see these races come up, and we do have the babies. I went in a different direction. I went with number 3, and that's Pinhook from the Alan Jerkins barn. Now, I know he ran a pretty forgettable race in his debut. I'm willing to throw that out. He did take money on that day, and that was back at Gulfstream Park West, November 19th. He is a son of Unbridled Song. They're generally pretty precocious. Some nice works, Ron, from this horse. So I was willing, I'm taking a bit of a gamble here. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt that he didn't fire that day. He's getting Lasix for the first time. That also might be a clue or an indication to us what happened to him that day. He did show speed. I'm expecting a better effort. I know when you went with number 1, Blame Game, trained by Mr. Todd Fletcher.
Also, that horse you were talking about, Pinhook, getting blinkers on today, too. So a bunch of changes there. Blame Game, a $200,000 son of Blame, debuting for Todd Fletcher, as you mentioned. Series of stamina-enhancing workouts, showing up at Palm Beach down. The Colt breaks the rail. He's got Lasix added. He's got Johnny Velasquez at the controls. But it is a first-time starter breaking from the rail, so maybe someone like the 3-horse in here, Pinhook, would be the logical choice to go with. I'm not really enamored with horses, first-time starters that, go from the rail, but we'll see what happens. You got to respect Todd Fletcher. I used the 4 Green Gold. This is a son of Street Boss, debuting for trainer Wesley Ward. Really nice workout paddock showing on both dirt and turf and dirt up at Palm Meadows. And trainer Wesley Ward, everybody knows about his proclivity with the 2-year-old with freshman runners. Adds Lasix, got jockey Mario Pino in the saddle.
Yeah, just to mention a couple of those horses that you mentioned, Blame is the sire of number 1, Blame Game. Blame first season sire, very good with his thus far, they've proven to be pretty precocious. His numbers are very high. They're almost 20%. They're 18% with his first-time starters, so one to look at. They did pay $200,000 for him, which is a little bit over the yearling average for that year, and they were pretty well received. I think they're going to get better as time goes on. My only concern with that horse, Ron, something to me is reading like not so super precocious. This one just reading to me a little bit more, maybe one we might see later on, and maybe might need a little bit more distance. And also, you mentioned Street Boss. I love the Street Bosses, and not for the reason that all of you think probably, but Street Boss, his numbers are also fantastic first time out. Wesley Ward, he always has them firing first time out. So from a sire perspective, pedigree perspective, those two certainly fit. And I also threw in number 5 in there. Ronnie, I don't think you had this one. Number 5, Ready, Get, Set, from the Eddie Keneally barn. I think this one's going to improve. Had a wide post last time, and but good work. So, and Eddie Keneally horses, second time out, they seem to improve markedly. We are going to take a short break, and we will come back with the 5th race on the card that kicks off the 20-cent Rainbow 6 Stick around, folks.
Gulfstream Park is one of Florida's top entertainment destinations, mixing restaurants, clubs, a casino, and international boutique shops with world-class racing. In a lavish, sun-drenched setting with the feel of a Mediterranean village, Gulfstream is a leading year-round entertainment and tourist destination and the home of luxury residences in 2014. The Stronach family, owners of Gulfstream Park, is committed to the sport of thoroughbred racing and the grace, spirit, and generosity of the horse.
The Rainbow Six is back and it's better than ever. Now with a 20-cent base wager, it will expand the market for the popular bet. And in addition to doubling the base wager, the percentage return for the winners on the day the jackpot isn't hit increases to 70%, with 30% going to the carryover pool for the next program. Gulfstream Park, first post, 12:35 p.m. each and every day.
Welcome back to Gulfstream Park. We're going to have a look at the 5th race on the card that kicks off the 20-cent Rainbow Six. And there's that carryover.
Yeah, over $100,000. And the video that we're going to show you here is not a horse I actually picked, but I think it's a horse that you have to use on your Rainbow Six ticket. And that is, this one is called An Imaginary Road. And I just like the way this horse closed last time out. Was turning for home, got parked 6 wide on there. You're not going to be able to miss this horse. He's gray, and he's really gray, and he's coming, and I just like the way he closed. And when I went back and looked at this race, I had already done my analysis in there, and I said, you know, I got to show this race to make sure people use it on the Pick 5 ticket. He comes, he finishes a real good second, and I just think someone that you have to look to. I noticed that he's 5-1 on the morning line. Some people might be going to use him already, but I just wanted to point that out. With that said, I went with the 5 Palace Gate in there, and this one is dropping to this $35,000 two-lifetime claimer. First start since recovering from a troubled start. He was reluctant to load in going into that race. He finished 4th. It was against entry-level allowance runners going a mile into 16th. It was on the Gulfstream West turf. Todd Pletcher, Javier Castellano named to ride. Got to have that somewhere on your Rainbow Six ticket.
I did, and I used the horse, and I didn't put him on top, and there were just several things that in terms of how he's coming into the race, I just wasn't enamored with him. I'm hoping my selection, number 8, All Cash, I hope he is going to be all cash later on this afternoon. He's a colt by English Channel. The English Channels, not only could he run on the turf, right, his offspring can run on the turf, and I just think he's caught a couple of really tough spots. Now look who he was with formerly, Ron. He was with Dwayne Lucas. And I really thought that you look at
now I know why you picked him.
Well, he's no longer with Dwayne Lucas. He's with Patricia Faro right now. Orlando Boca Chica gets aboard. You look at that his last couple of starts, they've been on the dirt. I don't think that's his preferred surface. You go a few starts back, even 3 starts back, and he ran. It was a tough spot for him. I think he's back in exactly the right spot. I think he's on his preferred surface. I'm hoping he's also going to show a little more turn of foot. And this is you were talking about Imaginary Road. He's a bit of a galloper to me, and I think he'll be picking up the pieces late, but I'm hoping All Cash is going to get the jump on these horses.
Well, you know, each and every day I give a long shot out today, and All Cash was my long shot, but when I looked at the morning line, he was only 9-2. Yeah, I thought I was going to be the only one to find him, so you found him. The morning line maker found him, and I made him my long shot, and I'm going to come with a little egg on my face, and they don't agree in this horse, but 9-1 in the morning line, I thought he'd be like 10-12-1, and I've used him for all the reasons you mentioned, right. So, but 9-2 on the morning line, so when you see my long shot today, so we are sort of in agreement. But I know we both used the number 3 Golden Rivet, dropping into this condition claiming race after ending his fall campaign up there at Woodbine with a 4th place finish, going 9 furlongs. It's Dan Vella's the trainer, Edgar Prado in the saddle.
We did have a couple of scratches in there, the 4 and the 11, and a couple of jockey changes, number 7 Paco Lopez, and also number 9 Rafael Hernandez. And our man Larry Comas will be on in a few moments to give all the scratches and changes, all the up-to-date scratches and changes for today. So moving on to the six. So what you're telling me for the Rainbow Six, we got to use a couple in there.
Oh, you got to use a couple in there because you know the one I showed you now, the one that I thought I was going to be sneaky about, that I'm not sneaky about. So I think you go deep in the first part. I think you got to use 4 or 5 horses, especially in these turf races. It's all about the trip, and all these horses are pretty formful. They hit the wire together, whether they're depending how the surface is playing today. So I think you got to go a little deep in the turf races.
Well, a very good point, because we move on to the 6th race on the card, and it's also a turf race. It's a mile over the turf course, 35,000 maiden claiming 4 2-year-olds. And again, these races have become really tough because you can't place, there's no bias or not really any perceivable bias that we can really pick out. This race kicks off the pick 5, so if we don't get it done, if we get kicked out or we're booted out in the Rainbow 6 on the first leg, then we've got the pick 5 that we can bet in or we can jump in on here. I went with number 10, and that is Purpose, a 2-year-old gelding by Stroll. I love the transition to the turf for the offspring of Stroll. And you look at a couple starts back, actually 3 starts back, he finished behind a horse named It's Not Me. And It's Not Me went over, he was at Gulfstream Park West and ran a really good race. It won a stakes over there. But I'm trying to, hoping that Orlando Bucachica can get it done.
Well, I got that horse on my ticket, but I want to go back and show you a replay of the horse I put on top of my ticket as a bug flies in my eye, and that's the one Dreaming of Clarice. And now, the key was you said, this horse ran at a mile in the 16th last time out, and you'll see this horse running very well, and I think the turn back today to a mile is really going to help. Today, the number 1, Dreaming of Clarice, that day, you'll see the 8 horse there, and I just thought she was going to win that day, and then just got a little leg weary at the end and got tired, and, ended up finishing 3rd in the race, but I think the turn back to a mile is going to help. I also have the 10 Purpose on the ticket, and I used the 7 BF Forever, eligible to show more. Had the early lead at the quarter pole, faded at the 16th pole, and his first ever outing going a distance of ground on the turf. So there is reason to believe that this horse could move forward. Now you're going to have to go deep in this one too if you follow our theory. So 2-2, we're going to have to find a single somewhere. I got one a little later on. I'm interested to see if you picked it, but not just yet.
I also threw in the number 6 in that race, and that's Hope is Best from the Greg Sacco barn and from Monmouth Park, based at Monmouth Park. First time routing over going over a route of ground. Shakespeare, the pedigree is really for turf, hopefully for some improvement to hit the board for that race that kicks off the pick 5. We move on to the 7th race on today's card, which kicks off the late pick 4, and it is a mile on the main track. It is a 12-5 maiden claiming event, and my top selection in here, I went with number 2.
Hey, we're in agreement.
Oh, hey, there you go. Miracles do happen. Tommy No Reed, and this is a colt by Sky Mesa. He's been running on the synthetic 4 of his, on the poly track to be specific, up at Woodbine, and that last race I thought was reasonable. I'm expecting for him to step forward getting onto the dirt today.
Well, you mentioned that, running on the polytrack surface up there, but if you look at his work over at Gulfstream Park West, he runs 5 furlong bullets, so there isn't, you believe that he can handle the dirt, so the reason I put him on there, Tommy No Reed, he's 10-1 in the morning line. I hope we can get 10-1 in the morning line. We also used the number 5 in there, Tis Be the One. This is stretching out today to a 1-turn mile, rallied to come within a half length of defeating $16,000 maidens going 7 furlongs, and that was across town, so I think the stretch out will help this horse. And at 2 and 6, I'm sensational in 3rd.
I know why you threw that horse in. It's just,
No, you're absolutely right.
On to the 8th race on today's card, and it is a maiden special weight, is a mile on the turf course. We have several turf races today. It should be exciting. 2-year-old fillies, and this race for me was great because it just shows how differently we both used a couple of the horses the same. Our top horses are different. I didn't even use the number 1. That's a ZZ Zoom Zoom, first time going a route of ground, and for the Daughter of Congrats. His numbers are a little bit better for his horses sprinting than they are over a mile and over, and that is the Sire Congrats. Paco Lopez gets aboard. I went with number 7, Miss Pink Diva. This is a 2-year-old daughter of Dunkirk, first time on the turf. Dunkirk's numbers, they're fair, they're reasonable, and also getting blinkers for the first time. But if you look, Ron, a couple of starts back, she didn't have the greatest of starts. This is Miss Pink Diva. She still finished 2nd. Last time she ran an improved race, at least from a figures perspective. She ran an improved race. She was still 2nd, but if you look at the horse that she finished behind, Making Sense, I think that's going to be a nice filly going forward, maybe a stakes caliber filly. So I'm hoping this filly's going to get it together today, but you went another way.
I went with the 1 as my best bet and the single in the Rainbow 6 today. I said I had to find a single somewhere on the ticket, and I'll tell you why I like ZZ Zoom Zoom. Stretching out to a mile after really a rough outing at 5 furlongs on the Gulfstream Park West turf. She broke 9th and last in that race. She got shuffled back right away. Then she gets steadied a couple of times going up off the backstretch, was forced to rally wide and still managed to finish second. Amy Tehran is the trainer, Paco Lopez in the saddle, and I just thought ZZ Zoom Zoom, after all the trouble it had to finish second, put that one on top of my ticket. And I was just watching our replay show from Sunday, and Katie actually showed this race too as a trouble call, so that gives me makes me feel a little better about my pick in there. I went with the 8 Miss Margaret in second and number 11 Sierra Olivia in third.
Yeah, we did use Miss Margaret. And number 11, Sierra Olivia, she's a daughter of Pulpit, and his numbers are actually pretty good with his turf runners. But most importantly, she's making her turf debut. Her half-sibling is a graded stakes winner on the turf, and that's Hudson Steele. So I think that from a pedigree, at least from a pedigree perspective, she should be able to handle the surface. She's been catching muddy, wet tracks all along. I just don't like the post. I don't like her being out in the clouds there, which is why I didn't have her further up than I did.
Yeah, they didn't have much luck, as you mentioned. All 3 races before this, all on wet track. So we'll see how number 11, Sierra Olivia, is on the ticket. I singled the 1 in there, ZZ Zoom Zoom, I mentioned, but you might want to go a little deeper in there. I just had to put a ticket together. I had to pick some spot where I thought I could single, and that was it.
Yeah, you had to take a stand somewhere. On to the 9th race on today's card. It is a 35,000 claiming event, 1 mile, and a 16th on the turf.
Liking all these turf races today.
I know, we have a lot of them, and that's why we have to see how they play early. But so far, I think that's been throwing, at least it's been throwing me off a little bit, because I haven't really seen a pattern, a specific pattern with any of them. We do have a scratch in there, number 10, Empire Knight. That was significant to me, Ron, because that was my top choice. So I ended up with number 3, and that's just fooling around. Coming in, I think a couple of things. Coming in off of a pretty good race, I thought a solid race, a good number, regular, steady work pattern coming into this. Those are the kind that I like for these.
Yeah, and if you look through our past performance lines, you see the name El Jefe Grande, and El Jefe Grande, what a hard-knocking campaign that is. I did not have the 10 on top. I had it in second, the horse that is scratched. So I have number 11, Arch Avenger, who I liked all along. Now in a Ramon Preciado barn, the son of Arch, drops into this condition claimer after ending his turf campaign in New York with a 6th place showing. That was against entry-level allowance runners. But if you look back, this colt was beating a nose at this level at Belmont in June. Boasts a couple of really solid workouts over the track, including a 5-furlong bullet in 59-2. Albeit on the main track, but it looks like this horse is feeling good and is going to run good in there. And a proven commodity, it's this level of competition, which is, 3 lifetime.
I did have that horse. I also threw in number 1, and that's War Classic to round out my trifecta, hopefully. On to the 10th race, and the 10th and final race on the card. It is a 62.50 claiming test, a mile on the main track. There's a jockey change. Number 7, El Romano, will be ridden by Jonathan Gonzalez, and there's super high 5 wagering in the final race. My top selection, I went with number 3, Sir Edgar, and very consistent in his last few starts. His form has been holding, and I think just going the right way, this would be his 2nd consecutive victory. But I even think the race that he was beat a couple starts back, 5.5 furlongs, that came back to be a pretty good number, and I think that he's in the right form right now.
Yeah, he looks like absolutely the one to beat, and there'll be some people that'll be singling his horse in the final leg. He looks that good, and I think for all the reasons you mentioned, I used Burning Time. Then I used Colonel John as stepping up the competition. He took the overland route last time out. I think he can be somewhere on your super high 5 ticket, and that's in his last race, where you got to pick the first 5 finishes in the race. And boy, they've been betting that a lot, and it's been paying pretty nicely.
Yeah, it has, and I also threw in there, as you said, Burning Time. And number 6, In Rhythm, was a horse that I threw on my ticket as well. Hasn't raced since August, but I'm thinking that going to be getting, again, steady works coming into this. I'm hoping for a good performance here. Ron, that's it for our 10 races here today. Again, we've a loaded card.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We love those turf races, and everybody around the country loves them. It's a special Tuesday afternoon, so we should have a lot of people looking at us from simulcast land, and we want to put our best face forward, so I'm going to be off the air the rest of the day.
Well,
just joking.
We do have the Rainbow 6 that starts in race 5, and we'll be back in just a few moments, Ron and I, for the rest of the afternoon. Larry Colmus will be on in just a minute, and we will send you off with a look back at the Grade 3 Sugar Swirl, our winner, Mary Meadow. And stick around, folks.
After a half in 45-3, and they're into the stretch. Our free roll on the inside, Wildcat Lily and Mary Meadow coming up to them in the center of the track. Mary Meadow makes her run for the lead, coming down to the 16th pole. Our free roll is there. Then Wildcat Lily, followed by Old Donio, but it's Mary Meadow and Javier Castellano to win. and then a photo between Wild